Hello, guys. Welcome to Live Life on IntellectualRadio.com. We are so excited today. We're going to have an exciting show for you. But we're going to talk about, if you noticed last week, we talked about the defining decade. I actually have the book today. I forgot to bring it last week. But the book is called The Defining Decade by Meg J. She's a PhD. Why your 20s matter. Why it's so important to take advantage of your 20s. We're going to expound on that. And expounding on that, we'll be talking about the mishaps, the things that can happen in your 20s that can put you off on the wrong course of being able to pick up and get successful. Or, there are a lot of things, like I said, that just simply can continue in a spiral going way. As well, we're going to talk about the politics, and we're going to talk about what's happening here, what's happening abroad, and as well as what entertainment news. So we're going to talk about entertainment news. Guys, we have a lot for you today. So we're going to get right in. I forgot my 5 W's of Black history. Of course, we're going to talk about the 5 W's of Black history. You guys know that that is my absolute favorite. But we're going to start first with politics. Do you know that today, maybe it happened yesterday, Donald Trump, he decided to shake up his campaign party, which I think that this is his second time in 1 month that he has done that.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
He's trying to appeal to African Americans because there's a new poll that came out saying that only 1% of African Americans will vote for Donald Trump. And I still would like to know who that 1% is, but there's of African Americans out there for Donald Trump.
You know, the 1%, I thought it actually would be a higher percentage, truthfully. I've seen so many people, it seems like I've seen more Black people in his arena, in his campaign. So I was kind of surprised that it was only 1%. I thought it would be a little bit higher, but I do have a friend who is a part of that 1% who faithfully supports him in anything that it does not matter. She is from Nigeria, and my friends have had a conversation with her saying, you know, that you are not excluded from this deportation list, correct? But it's her decision. But yeah, I do know people part of that 1%.
Wow, that's scary. And you are how old, Kenya? How old are you?
20.
20 years old.
So wow. This is going to be my first election.
Your first election. Wow. So how do you feel about it? I mean, are you nervous about voting? And
I'm not really nervous about voting because I kind of only have one option at this point, but it's an interesting election to have as your first one because we have two candidates that people don't really favor either one. Usually in presidential these elections in the past, people will choose one or the other, like, oh, I really, really want this person, or I really, really want this person. But for either candidate, I'm just kind of lukewarm, and I'm like, well, I guess I have to choose this one because the other one is too bad. So you have to choose the lesser of the two evils is basically what's happening.
That's true, because you were a Bernie Sanders supporter
at
first, right?
So you just have to choose the lesser of the two evils at this point and hope for the next 4 years to keep going.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing about Donald Trump, and the media, I'm certain, is loving it because he has never made it a dull moment. Not at all. Not at all. Now, I'll talk about it in politics. I had an opportunity to, I guess I was on the computer at the time. Judge Olu Stevens out of Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, who was suspended for 90 days. He was suspended for 90 days. And the reason why he was suspended is because he took a position in terms of saying that he had a defendant who was sitting at the table that was in his courtroom who filed a motion to say that, hey, this all-white jury does not represent me. This is not someone of my peers. So with a judge position, they either have the right to move forward, sustain or object. So the attorney, the fact that this defendant is saying, hey, an all white jury cannot properly represent me. I do not think that I will get a fair trial with an all white jury. And Judge Stevens agreed. He said, I sustain. You're bringing out very valid points. So as a result of that, it caused a spiral. A lot of
Yeah.
people got upset behind it, and they were like, oh, he's biased, and that's not, fair. A judge should be impartial.
Hmm.
And I mean, it really just got out of control. And with that, they suspended him for 90 days without pay.
I thought it was.
Now, when you look at that, you say, without pay, because he sustained a decision.
Mm.
And there was this one local news person, local radio personality, actually. His name has escaped me at this moment, but there was a local radio person who really pushed for him to get back on the bench. And I believe at this point, his suspension lasted only 1 week, and they put him back on the bench. But I commend Judge Stevens for taking a stance. And in fact, Duke University did a study saying that if there's just one African American or one Hispanic or one Asian, whoever it
One person
is,
of color in
one
general.
person of color that's on that stand or in the jury pool, it will
Hmm.
make a difference in terms, I mean, a huge difference. So to say that Judge Stevens was being biased was not true. Was not true because as he stated himself, he said, first of all, I can't even come forward with something of that caliber first letting you know, without first knowing that there's a motion that came forward. So there's no bias on my part. I can't present it myself.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, even if you flip the script and you thought of it for a second, that if you did have a white defendant and all of the people on the jury were black,
Wow.
they
Wouldn't that
wouldn't,
be
they
interesting?
would immediately try to figure out why everybody on the jury is black. That would be considered out of the norm. And then that would have been immediately fixed. They would be like, oh, well, let's figure out who we can get to switch out. Anything of that sort. It would be completely seen as suspicious. While if it's an all white jury, that's considered the norm, which a lot of people aren't allowed to question. So,
Wow, very good point, Kenya. Very good point. You're absolutely right. Because I thought about it in terms of flipping it as well by saying, what if there was a Caucasian judge who
mhm.
sustained that? Let's say that defendant brought up that same issue saying, hey, listen, I don't think that I will have a fair chance here because there is an all white jury here. And let's say that white judge said, I sustain. I agree with you. I don't think it'll be fair. I wonder, would he have gotten suspended? It was just really just profound when I think about it. And then he has a wife who's a doctor who she took to Facebook to say, hey, listen, my husband is experiencing a modern day lynching. I need you guys to forward with this and understand that what's happening, that this is a modern day lynching.
Mm.
And as a result of everyone rallying, I'm having a hard
Rallying.
time to say that word, getting together.
Yes.
As a result of everyone getting together, then he ended up being able to get his job back. So kudos to the people who stood up for Judge Olu Stevens.
Definitely.
Definitely kudos to them. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is what's happening here at home. One of the things that's going on right now here at home is that there's this cargo ship in Puerto Rico that's carrying 500 passengers who the ship just caught on fire. It caught on fire.
Wow.
Can you imagine how scary that must have been?
Ooh.
But thank God they were able to get all 500 of them off.
Okay.
And so,
That's
with
good.
getting all 500 of them off, they're all safe.
That's good.
I've never taken a cruise before. I've been on a boat several times, but I've never taken a cruise. In fact, I have a cruise coming up, though. I'm excited. In October, I'll be going on my first cruise. And so I'm excited about that. But they safely,
Definitely.
in terms of
That's a
what's
blessing.
happening here. Now, abroad, what's happening abroad? I guess we can still talk about the Olympics. I'm excited. It's
Oh,
still going on. You have Simone Biles. Simone Biles, she got 4 gold medals, no, 3 gold medals and 1 bronze, because the last time she performed, she didn't do so well. She kind of stumbled on that. And people were like, wow. Now, what's interesting about that, though, once she won the 3 medals and she got all around, they came out with this report saying, oh, how does she do that? Let's talk about the science of Simone Biles. She's built like this, she's built like that, and that's the reason why she can do this and she can do that. And I'm going, really? How about Michael Phelps, who's won 22 medals? You're not talking about the science of his body and how he can do that.
Yeah.
That's just interesting that here it is, you have a black woman and you have to look at the science of the body.
It's
What's
basically going back to the whole idea of eugenics, of how people justified slavery, of saying that idea of eugenics is saying they are inferior because of this type of body shape, this skin color, and they had science books on why black people were considered to be inferior. So it's just going back to the same idea of what's always technically been there of when people saying why black people are better at running while they're better at basketball. Like, it's something that's intrinsic inside of them physically, that they are just made differently somehow, where it's just like this super something that's, it can't just be because of raw talent, or be, well, not raw talent, but building to be better. It's never seen as like, well, I worked hard, like a white athlete worked hard to get to it. It has to be because there's something in my body that allows me to do it, not because I just set and decided to work hard.
All right, guys, I don't know about y'all, but Kenya just used a really big word, and I'm sitting here with my mouth like wide open, like, what in the world is eugenics? I realized that I didn't get her to introduce herself at the very beginning. I kind of went straight into it, started talking. So do tell a little bit about yourself, Kenya. What does eugenics mean, and why are you using such a big word?
I am Kenya Askew. I am 20 years old, and I attend Boston College in Boston, Massachusetts. Well, technically Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. I'm going into my junior year, and I will be studying abroad in Madrid, Spain, for 4 months. And I will
When do you
be.
leave?
I leave August 30th, so I'm leaving pretty soon. And use a lot of big words because my mom here decided to buy me a lot of books when I was younger. And I like words. So in college, we just kind of, you're required to use big words for everything, especially with my job at the Women's Center. Big words are everywhere. So eugenics is basically, like I stated, the science. It's a justification. People use it to say this is the reason why this is happening. So eugenics was the reason why black people were considered to be inferior, and it was a justification for slavery. Besides, of course, the whole religious aspect of saying that God wants it that way too. People use religion and eugenics as a big justification for slavery. So it's just interesting that that's continued, and it's not because Simone just decided to work hard like any other person works hard. It was because of her body type.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're so right. We are dealing with a lot of that, and superiority, inferiority. Unfortunately, we still have to use such words when it comes to race, I must admit. So, moving right on, guys, we're going to talk about entertainment news. Entertainment news, there was a long awaited movie that everyone was all excited about called The
Yes.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, Suicide Squad. It was basically a movie where it had all these stars. It had Viola Davis, Will Smith, Jay. Why am I not thinking of his name properly? But he is the one who was playing the Joker. There were posters everywhere. People were making blogs about it. It was about the superheroes, but mostly the super villains. So it had Harley Quinn and all of these famous DC comic, Marvel comic super villains. And people were waiting for forever. I remember my freshman year in college, people talking about the Suicide Squad, and we're like, comes out in 2016, excitement, excitement. And so they were all on talk shows talking about how people got into character and everything. So when the movie came out, people were really upset that it was basically a flop. It did not live up to expectations. Everybody, I think, excited for the Joker character, but once you have someone who has like Heath Ledger, who was the Joker, we're literally infamous for his portrayal of the Joker, that people's hopes were very high for this one, but it was just not there. So that was kind of sad.
Wow. Imagine just being so disappointed and the fact of something that you waited for so long, especially with all of those great actors that
Yeah, it was a
was in
lot
the
of great
movie.
actors.
It was just a flop. Did you go see it?
I have not seen it yet, but I've seen a lot of reviews that were just not favorable at all.
Yeah, you tend not to go see a movie when it gets bad reviews, right?
Mhm.
Like, I will not waste
No
my
need to waste
dollars.
my money.
All right, guys, we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the mishaps, things that can happen in your 20s. So make sure you stay tuned to Live Life on IntellectualRadio.com. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Live Life on IntellectualRadio.com. We are now going to talk about the mishaps, the things that can happen in your 20s. As I stated last week, what we're trying to do here, or what we're going to be doing on Live Life, is we're going to build, each week, we're going to build on a topic. And at the end of those 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever that month brings you, then we will hopefully have given you a lot of things that you'll be able to take away with you, and a lot of things that you can just use. And if nothing else, just great information. And if it's some things that you already know, please make sure that you share with others. So, in talking about the mishaps, the first one that we want to talk about is how, well, Kenya, I'm going to let you begin first because you are reading the book, The Defining Decade.
Yes.
And so tell me what Dr. J has, what you think you have gotten out of this book so far.
So far, I'm probably about 30 pages in, and actually 20 pages in, but I've learned quite a bit from this book so far, mostly about laying the groundwork for what you want to do with your life. I was lucky and blessed enough to have parents to tell me to kind of go towards something that I want to do already, where it's not just getting a job for the sake of having a job for the sake of getting money, but instead to better yourself and to build capital. And the capital that she talks about in this book is interest capital you've been doing with your life. So say, for example, if I got out of college and I decided to take a gap year before I decided to go to work, if depends on what I to go work at Starbucks, for example, and just to get some money. However, with that gap year, I could also decide to do volunteer work in another country for a whole year. And the volunteer work will look better on your resume than the star resume, even though you may have only gotten a stipend from your volunteer work because of traveling, or you didn't get paid at all, you would get more capital from the fact of saying, because you had more experiences while traveling abroad and volunteering than if you would have at a Starbucks working. And so therefore it would build your resume, and you are more likely to find a better job than if you just found a short job just for the sake of making money.
Okay, so capital is not just money, as
Capital
you
is
said.
not just money. It's just gaining
The knowledge.
gaining knowledge and gaining a reputation. Pretty much, it's building your reputation.
Positive reputation.
Very
Yeah.
positive reputation.
And so then that begins to connect you to opportunities
Yes.
of getting, more jobs. I think earlier when we took a break, you were talking about the alumni, how strong an alumni unit and those connections within that alumni unit. Because I think I mentioned last week the fact that, first of all, you're a pop scholar. So you go to Boston College, you're a pop scholar. And in being a pop scholar, you had an opportunity to sit at a table, $100,000
Yes.
table,
Yes.
$10,000 per plate. And with that being done, you're making connections there. But talk about the alumni, association that Boston College offered, how important it is for people to take advantage of,
Our
so that these
alumni,
mishaps won't happen.
definitely. We have an alumni center on campus, and we also have a career center on campus. The alumni center, you can go Eagle Link, and you just put in where you want to work, your major, what you've done, resume, and they will give you a list of all the alum who are in the field that you're trying to go into.
Wow.
And they will give you emails and job links, and these people will email you back, help you with anything that you need. They will ask you for your LinkedIn account to say, oh, I can get you connected with this person. I can get you connected with this person. Network at my school. And I think that's also what we learned from our career center on campus, is that they help you build your resume. They help you find people who you need to network with, talk to the right people. For example, at the $100,000 table that I was sitting at, I was just sitting there because I was thankful that my donors were paying for me to go to school. And I was sitting there eating, and at my table was the athletic director of Boston College. He's in charge of all of the sports teams, and we are a D1 school, so he is in charge of sports teams. And I talked to him, exchanged emails, talked to his receptionist, and he told me to just keep in contact with him, and he would pass my resume along to people who may be able to get me to shadow them at ESPN or any other sports outlet of that sort. It's kind of just realizing not to burn bridges and to make connections with people who seem like you don't have something in common with, but all you.
And those are the weak ties.
And those are the weak ties.
Which
You're more
Dr. J
likely
talks.
to get people. You're more likely to get career advantages with weak ties, people that you don't really know, than strong ties, such as your family.
Okay. So those are the things that are helping you to get on a path. Hopefully, keep you that you're only 20 years old right now. So you still pretty much have all of your 20s to go difference, but you're realizing how important it is to start from the beginning. But now let's talk about the mishaps that can happen in your 20s, which is what this particular show segment is about. Say for, I know a young lady who, she actually does a lot of the hair braiding for me as well as for you and Visha and a lot of other friends and stuff that I know, and she's been doing it a long time. But she and I have had many conversations in terms of, she wished that she would have taken a different course when she was in her 20s. Right now I believe she's like late 30s, early. But she ended up having many children when she was younger. So can you imagine being an unwed mom, having to raise children on your own, when wishing that you would have focused it in a different way? And like in her case, she ended up having several children, as I stated. and a lot of them are teenagers right now, getting ready to go through their own, changes. In
Mhm.
fact, I think she even had a young one of her teenagers who was about 22, 23. She ended up having a child as well. So she has been frank with me and saying, Laura, I wish that I would have taken a different course because education is real big in her family. She is quite intelligent herself, but that mishap that happened in her 20s is now causing her to sometimes have more difficult times in life as of today. The fact that she chose to have, several children during her 20s. I always wonder, and I guess for me, I was blessed in the essence that I started in my 20s, but I was a little later in life when I started doing it too. I was later in my 20s when I started doing it. I had an opportunity to finish school first before I did. I wonder in reading that book and just for me, I did a summary of what the book was about when I talked about it last week. I always, went to school and did those things. Unwed mom in the 20s. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I definitely think that it's something that can kind of derail you from we're focused on originally, and for her focus was originally schooling. But I feel like even though there was a mishap, that doesn't mean that you can't get your life back on track.
Absolutely.
And we are blessed with having, as the years go on, people they did when they a while back. And I feel that there are a lot more resources now. And there does need to be more of a sense of community where people feel the need to say that, hey, I will help you out with this. But even though she may have messed up a lot, can't kind of get it all back together, especially with the support of her children, which we do know that a lot of her children do support her in going back to school
Mm-hmm.
and influencing her to improve on anything that she can improve on. I feel like that's definitely a benefit because your 20s do need to be taken advantage of. Those who may not have taken advantage of their 20s, it's always comforting to know it may be a little bit harder, it will be a little bit harder, but to know that you can still persevere and track. That's a positive.
Yeah, that would be great. But I think the biggest thing is knowing and knowing
Yeah.
how to, because unfortunately, a lot of times there's a perpetual cycle that occurs that if someone is a unwed teenager,
Hmm.
then and that their child will then follow in their footsteps
Yes.
unless they make those changes before those children or while those children,
Hmm.
it's important to make those changes then. So that's can be an unfortunate mishap, but you're absolutely right, Kenya, in saying that you have time to get back on track and to put yourself in a better position as of today. Another thing that can happen in your 20s, you can end up in the criminal justice system. That is one, depending on what you went in for, that can totally ruin your 20s. You may spend your entire being you're stuck in a prison system or caught up in that whirlwind of a system. So if you had a plan before, as I stated last week, society tells you, hey, you're 20, you're young, you can kick it, you got plenty of time, have fun,
Hmm.
go on, girl, enjoy yourself.
There's
Oh
a phrase in
man,
the book called 30 is the new 20, where it can decide to start trying to have a career and figuring out what you're going to do with your love life, relationships, children. They're like 30 because 30s are the new 20s. While in your 20s, you're still, it's just another adolescent stage. And I think that people continue to perpetuate that idea of it just being another adolescent stage because say, I'm young. And even just 20-year-olds who say that they can do whatever they want, they also get that idea from their elders or the people who are older than them. Will say, well, you're not technically an adult yet. You're technically an adult yet because you may live at home with me for a year or something.
I'm
You're
financially
not, yeah,
supporting
I'm
you.
financially supporting you. So therefore, if you constantly continue to tell someone that they aren't, or you continue to baby someone and just constantly have that in their head, they will then internalize, you're right, I am just, this is just another adolescent stage till I'm 30 to deal with it.
Yeah, and then when you look up, they're 30 and they're still trying to figure out life because they don't have a plan. They didn't come up with a plan when they were 20. In their 20s, you have to have a plan in order to put yourself on a different course.
Definitely.
Which is the reason why we wanted to talk about this. Like, hey guys, we want you to take advantage of the fact that 20s are important. They're really important. And it's a time to get busy. It's a time to get busy, a time to handle business, and to say that you can have a more profitable, successful, happy future.
Yeah, because especially with the mishap of the unwed teen pregnancy, I feel like that one is a little bit easier to bounce back from than being put into the to prison. And go to prison for only a couple of years, and it may not even take up your entire 20s. That is a chunk of your life that you won't get back. And when you do come out, a lot of people end up back into the system because that's what our society do. We make up 25% of the people in prison in the world, but the US is only 5% of the world. We only have 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's population in prison. We are the country that puts the most people in the education system because prison is the big business.
That's true. It's privatized.
And
so
people who
private.
Exactly. So people who come out of prison, you can't get public housing, form of income. You can't get a form of income because more people are less likely to hire you because you've been in prison, depending on what you went to prison for. So therefore, it's just an endless cycle of saying, well, if I can't get a job because people are less likely to hire me, how am I supposed to be able to get public housing? And also what we consider to be a basic right of the right to vote, which shows that your freedom, you can lose that right to vote if you go to prison. So therefore, they already show you that you are less of a human and you don't have that freedom anymore because they take away your right to vote. So you lose a lot of rights that you don't get back even when you come back out of prison. Why would you stay somewhere where you don't have a home, you don't have a source of income, you don't know where your next meal may come from, depending on if you're close with your family or not. So most people just go back to prison because that's the only place they have left to go. The prison system doesn't reform, it just keeps people coming back. They don't focus on skills of how you can make it out in the real world. Their whole goal is to get you to come back so they can continue to make.
Wow. Kenya, you're pretty deep. But you're absolutely right, though. You hit on point. You hit it perfect. Because again, society sets them up by saying, hey, you are less than zero. You cannot, we will not allow you. In fact, we're going to put a lot of laws in place that's going to stop you to succeed when you get out of prison. This month, we're going to have someone that's going to come on and talk about that. They're going to have some resources in terms of being able to help an ex-offender an opportunity to succeed. I think the sad part about that all, when I think about it, is that they were charged, they were convicted, they did their time, and then society holds it against them for the rest of their lives. I think it's the saddest thing that happens to someone that enters prison. So we say to you guys, pay attention to your 20s. Pay attention. Because again, they just want to make money off you when it comes to the prison system. That's exactly what they want to do. It's all about making money. And in fact, there are studies that were done that said when it comes to the African American child, they start to look at it begin when our young boys are born. And then when they get to kindergarten, they actually take account of how many young African men are young boys are in kindergarten, and they decide to build prisons based on that number.
Wow.
It's really scary.
Yep.
It is scary. So they're out there, they're like voting to take advantage of people, especially young African American males. You know, I hate to
One in
say
three
it.
black men, it is a study that 1 in 3 black men will be put in prison at some point in their life. 1 in 3.
Wow.
So
At some point in their
at
lives,
some point in their life.
whether they stay there the whole time or not. But keeping that in mind, I also want you guys to know, because it's also a myth that they'll say that the majority of the black men are in prison when that's not true. The majority of them are in college. They're out there. They're in college. They're doing things. But society keeps telling you, oh, that's where the majority are. You know, any of the things that's negative, they try to tag it to us as though we're the only ones doing it, when in fact we're a very small percentage within this country, within this world, period. So when you look at the big picture of things, caught up. Don't get caught up. Don't believe the hype, which is the reason why we're telling you, please, please, guys, take advantage of your 20s. Take advantage of it. Have a plan. I think I mentioned last week the fact that a good author who writes a book, he actually writes the very last line of his book. Then he moves to the middle. Then he moves to the beginning. You can write your story. Believe it or not, you can write your story. Because I thought about, I as well, I never knew what I wanted in a husband, but I knew what I didn't want in a husband.
Mm-hmm.
So it was important for me to write my story according to what I wanted,
Okay.
in life, where I saw myself going, and what I wanted to do. So don't think just because you're in your 20s, it's an extension of adolescence, because it isn't. And even though society tells you, your parents tell you, your professors may tell you, if you're in college, your employers may tell you that, oh, you're in your 20s, just, enjoy yourself. Have a plan. You have a
Definitely.
plan. By the time you get in your 30s and your 40s, you'll see yourself on a better path. And hopefully you'll have a dynamic savings account. I mean, an unbelievable financial portfolio.
Savings account, Roth IRA, all of those good things.
Exactly. All of those good things. All right, guys, we are going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion. I'm going to give you the 5 W's of Black history, which I should have done earlier. I'm going to give you the 5 W's of Black history, and we'll see you back on Live Life. right, guys, welcome back to Live Live on IntellectualRadio.com. You guys are laughing at me. I did something wrong, I guess. So we're going to continue our discussion. What we're going to talk about now, we're going to talk about the strong ties and the weak ties and how important it is to stay connected so that you will not have these mishaps. And talking about weak ties, I think we mentioned it a little bit last week. We talked about how when you meet a perfect stranger and how they want to extend a lending or helping hand to you without even knowing you.
Yes. Yeah. The weak ties, I know a lot of people are less likely to reach out because we are told, well, why are you wanting to help me? Where is your benefit in this? You know, there are a lot of concerns. However, I feel like a lot of a mishap that people commonly is only focusing on their strong ties. So thinking that, well, my family member can help me get this job, or all I need to focus on are my small group of close friends. And you don't really branch out or connect with people who you may only see all of one time. In the book, for example, she said that a bunch of books were sent to her house by accident. They were supposed to be sent to someone else. So she saw the address and she emailed the lady and said, "Hey, I have your books. Would you like them back?" And the lady said, "Oh, no, it's okay. You can just keep them and I'll just order a new set of books." Apparently, this lady was an author. She was doing pretty well for herself as an author, and they would keep in contact every so often over 2 years. And when the lady, the one who wrote this book, decided to write this book, she needed an editor, someone to help her. All she did was email the lady that she got the books from 2 years ago by accident and said, "Hey, I know that you're an author. Would you be willing to help me with this?" And she said, "Oh, of course, for sure." They had only talked to each other a couple of times out of the year. It was a very distant relationship. But just having that small connection can make you go very far places, which I think is the benefit of a weak tie, is that even though you may not know this person very well, they can get you farther than someone that you've known your entire life.
That is so true. So that's how she got started.
That's how she got started for her book. Was a bunch of books were sent to her by accident.
You're talking about a weak tie turning into a strong tie, someone that you barely knew. I know I talked about that last week with my cousin's daughter, where she met a perfect stranger, and the next thing you know, they were offering her an opportunity to get a job that would pay her 60 plus $1,000. Wow. And all she needed to do was take a short course, maybe about 6 weeks or so. So that time would have made a big difference for her. But because she's 21, 22, she decided, well, no, that's not what I want to do right now. You know, I have plenty of time to make that decision in life and what I'm going to do. You're talking about a mishap in your 20s, and perhaps that doesn't turn into a mishap for her. Not saying not taking advantage of all weak ties will cause you not to go on the right path, but you also have to not be afraid. Definitely. Because society tells you that you should be afraid. Don't worry about it. You got plenty of time for that.
Yeah, you should keep all of your options open. And even if it ended up, if you took the classes and they didn't work out, then you can at least say that you did try. But I would say not to put all your eggs in one basket, and just many options are better than no options.
That's true. Many options are definitely better than no options. All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about our life message. You want to get to our life message.
Life message is from the book, The Defining Decade. She quotes different authors before each chapter. And one of the quotes is from an author named Mary Anton. And she wrote, "We are born not all at once, but by bits." So,
wow. When you think about that, we are born all at once,
but by bits. We are born not all at once, but by bits.
What does that mean?
That means that I think a lot of people, when they're born, you think, I have been born with an innate set of beliefs or interests. And they say, well, you liked this as a child, so I know you'll do this later. Or for me, example, I talked about being a doctor the entire time, and then college, I was pre-med for 3 weeks and I dropped it and I switched to communications. I feel that as you continue to live your life, you learn things yourself. You meet people that can help you change your views on things. You have different experiences in life that will also change your views. So I feel that we aren't born all at once. We're not just going to be the same person for forever. But however, we find ourselves by living our lives. Many people don't even really find themselves or really know, wow, this was my purpose on this earth until they're close to death. I've looked back on my entire life and now I see why I was here. It's not something that you just kind of sit at age 20 and say, I know why I'm here for the rest of my life.
No,
You're not born all at once. You're born by bits. It takes time. It takes experiences. It takes other people. And it takes you just really reflecting on who you are, I think, is definitely what this quote was saying.
you are born by bits. That is truly something to think about. And that's true. We really are. As you go through life and you go through the stages, from the beginning, maybe you got married in your 20s and then you started having children. Then you became employed. You bought your first house.
Mm-hmm.
After you bought your first house, you changed careers. Maybe you relocated again. All of those things, but bit by bit. And for some of us, it becomes spiritual as well. We develop a connection with God. We started going to church. We started, getting an understanding of who we are and what we want to do. And as you stated, sometimes you don't recognize your purpose until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
That, at least, think about, hold on to. So we say to you guys, when it comes to your 20s, take advantage of your 20s because mishaps, they will happen. It's only a part of life, but it's important to just pick yourself back up, get to going, and realize that you only have one life to live. So with that, we are going to say goodbye. Thank you very much for watching us on Live Life, Intellectual Radio. Goodbye, guys. We'll see you. Oh, I forgot one thing. Next Thursday. We actually won't be Wednesday. We'll be here next Thursday, starting at 4:00, and Dr. Jones will be back. Thank you very much.